Center Grove Community School Corporation Board of School Trustees meeting. We are honored that each one of you are here this evening, that you've given your time to be concerned about the situation with our students and a little bit of learning too. So thank you all for being here. At this time, I would like to call this meeting to order. I will entertain a motion.
Just call to order. Oh, yeah, you don't need a motion.
Okay, all right, we'll just go without that then. I would remind you that we develop knowledgeable, confident, and responsible citizens through inspirational and innovative learning opportunities. At this time, I would like to remind you that we're going to be doing the pledge, and at this time, would Mr. Sider please come forward to the microphone?
Thank you very much for inviting us from North Grove to be represented here at the school board meeting tonight. And we have an excellent representative from North Grove that's going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, Elizabeth Florido. She is our student council president. She's definitely a superstar at North Grove Elementary School. In fact, she's on the morning announcements every morning, leading our morning announcements, doing the news, and she does all kinds of other things, wonderful things with our student council. She is very involved outside of school too. In fact, just a few minutes ago, I just learned she and her sister Bella are in the Nutcracker for Butler University, the ballet, coming up. This will be her third year in a row doing that. She's a star soccer player, and some philanthropy that she does through student council, she actually does it even on her own too. This past summer, we raised money for Riley Hospital, but she and two of her friends this summer decided to do a lemonade stand. And they raised $120 in their lemonade stand this summer and were able to donate that to Riley Hospital. And she's also a lover of animals, including she brought a chicken to school last year as part of our one of our donation drives that I had to kiss. So I did it with hesitation, but I did do it. But when I started to back up, she did not let me back out of that at all. So also want to thank her family. So her sister Bella, who's in second grade, is here tonight. And then AJ goes to Crabapple Creek right now, but he is a future Viking that will be there next year. And then her parents, Carlos and Heather, are here with us too. So thank you so much for coming. And now I think everyone's probably tired of listening to me talk, so I'll let our star student lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Everyone wants to rise?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, I would ask for adoption of the agenda.
Madam President, I move that we adopt the agenda as presented.
Thank you. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, likewise. Motion carried.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is a report on safety and discipline. Dr. Arkanoff?
Thank you, Mrs. Toomey. This evening, I would like to have Dr. Long present to you a report on safety and security in our district, and safety and discipline, I apologize. And Dr. Long will provide you that update.
Thank you. For the last 5 or 6 years, we've presented an annual report. It's one of the things that board policy asks for us to do regarding our police and discipline records. So with the help of my assistant Lynn and all the police officers, we put this together, and with the technology department who helped us gather all the information, real appreciative. It's way more involved than it always looks like, so we'll go through that. So in 2018, 2019, we had 315 runs and 29 arrests. I'd like to point out that probably the reason that it went down so much is we were short an officer last year, and a dog, and a handler, so we didn't have, we only had 2 officers at the time taking care of the entire school corporation. So those numbers are down just a little bit. And again, our goal for the police is to not make an arrest, right? We'd be happy to not arrest anybody. I would be happy to show 0 up there. But I think when you look at some of the number of incidences that we have, you'll see that they've decreased in the high school, where we've tried to maintain a presence there all the time. So the different types of arrests that we made, you can see here in front of you. Nothing really that sticks out. Maybe an intimidation to a school employee is something that we would take extremely seriously. Intimidation to a law enforcement officer as well. Battery still tends to be our highest number. That's typically when students get in a fight. They tend to get charged with battery. Next slide, please. So we had 30 deployments with our 2 dogs. We made 16 arrests based on that. We made 11 school presentations. That's up from last year. And they did 199 hours of training. Just wanted you to see their faces, put name to a face of our dogs. So we've really challenged them to not just deploy the dogs, but to have them in the building, make presentations, talk to the kids about them so everybody understands, and trying to help develop those relationships. And in the elementary schools, a dog's a nice way to do that. Kids want to come up and talk to the dog, and then, oh, by the way, talk to the officer as well while they're standing there. So we did pretty well with that, despite being down an officer and a canine this past school year. Citations, we issued 25 warnings and 52 citations. And the next slide will show you that most of those are tobacco citations. As you know, vaping is becoming a huge problem in our schools and on our buses and everything. And they've done a really nice job working with the high school administrative team to work to try to eliminate that as much as possible. But we still issued 39 citations for tobacco. Some of the training that our officers do, I just like to show this because, besides being Indiana Law Enforcement Academy trained officers, we continue to do training year-round. I think it's important, as a school, we're continuously learning, and our officers also need to continuously learn. So you can see some of the classes that they've been to. A lot of these are sponsored by the National Association of School Resource Officers. Especially, we hosted the adolescent mental health training for the Johnson County. We had several officers from a few of the different agencies here for that training. So we're really proud of that. You can see the amount of training our canine handlers have, and it keeps them sharp and the dogs sharp as well. So the discipline report, just to show you an idea of where we were with in-school suspensions, 469 at the high school, 222 at the elementaries, and 363 at the middle schools. Out-of-school suspensions, really just 84 at the high school, 200 at the elementary, and 159 at the middle school. So some of the reasons for suspensions at the high school anyway. You see defiance is the largest reason that we have on there. I did want to explain because you'll see later on, especially in the middle school, the other category is a little bit large. So the Department of Education lists 17 codes or reasons for suspension. And some of them don't, they don't have like destruction of property or attendance or anything. There are some really limited code. And so when they mark that in Skyward, they have to put other, because an out-of-school suspension, if it doesn't meet one of the 17 codes that the state requires, then you have to put other. So we're doing a better job this year. We've looked back last year to try to track what those other reasons are. So they have a secondary code, and we're making sure that we monitor that, and so we know, versus saying, oh, it's just other, and we're not really sure what those reasons are. In the middle school, you can see, again, defiance is one of the biggest ones, followed by other, and I've explained that. Have a little more technology misuse in the middle school than we do in the high school. Those are probably our highest. Had a lot of fighting as well. In the elementary school, obviously our numbers are way down. Again, other is 78. Theft, profanity, destruction of property, intimidation, those kind of things that we're having a little bit more of in the elementary schools. I mentioned earlier, but our number of suspensions and incidents at the high school went down from last year to this year. And I do think we can attribute that to having an officer in the high school on a full-time basis. We also added an SSO who helps out during passing periods and lunchtime and everything. So I think having that presence in the building has been a positive deterrent for some of the activities that we've seen, whereas the middle school numbers have slowly increased over the last few years. So we're seeing more there. The types of incidents and by grade level, you can just see there, I broke those out just a little bit differently than in the pie chart for you to take a look at. Student discipline for expulsions, we had 2 high school students that we offered the alternative to expulsion and 2 middle school students. Of the 15 expulsions at the high school, 11 of those students were offered an alternative to expulsion, and they probably violated the terms of that. So I'm really proud of the high school by not putting very many kids out. Obviously, we can't educate them if they're not in school, and so they work really hard of trying to find alternatives to expulsion to keep them in school, but if they violate those terms, they tend to end up being an out-of-school expulsion. In the middle school numbers, 2 alternatives and 4 expulsions. That's it. I was waiting for more. I take any questions that anybody might have.
So, and I don't know if this is a category, but is there any way to break the vaping out of the tobacco category?
I don't think in Skyward we list that any differently. I think it's a smoking. It might be in the notes. I can look and see. I know that Chief Jackson said that most of those citations that they issued were vaping citations and not cigarettes. But I'll look and see if I can find those numbers by going through those notes.
That'd be great. I mean, don't spend like hours.
No,
trying to
it
do If
shouldn't
it's
be
something
too
you
bad.
could do
Sure.
relatively quickly, that'd be cool. Thank you.
I think last year I asked the question because there were a lot of things in the other category. It looks like they've been further broken down this year.
After we gathered all the information, the numbers were still high. So my assistant Lynn and Beth in technology, they went back through to help us to look at the secondary reasons, because we just felt like when we talked to our administrators that other doesn't give us a good idea of what the problem is, and I think we had this conversation last year. So they went back through those and tried to find the secondary codes for the reasons, and we put those then in those right categories, and some of them just fit in other. They don't fit in some of those, but it's down. I think last year, Mr. Daniels, we had like 222 others, and that doesn't tell us very much, and it doesn't tell a good story, and doesn't help us figure out a way to prevent those in the future.
And I noticed in the high school, the other's down to 39, so it looks like that was pretty successful. In the middle school, it's still 100 of them. So I appreciate the effort.
Yeah,
and then hopefully as it continues,
and
it'll
we've
just
talked
be
to
further
them,
refined.
when they log it, and whoever logs it You know, we've talked to them about, it's okay to put the suspension as other, but in the notes of the secondary reason. And then now we know when we pull the reports that we can find those secondary reasons and then really put those in a category so we can track that even better.
I appreciate the effort, and I'm sure it'll be further refined as you keep going.
Sure,
So, thanks.
hopefully next year we have even less and less, so.
Okay, thank you.
Further comments? Thank you, Dr. Long.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Our next item on the agenda is public participation regarding agenda items. I will remind you that each person's statement may not exceed 3 minutes. And we have 2 individuals this evening who have asked to. Keith Poor, I ask you come forward and come to the microphone. I asked Pam, and she said that was a guy.
Oh, no, that's the budget. He's
Okay, all right.
Thank you, Mrs. Tooney. Board, I'd like to address this to you. My statement is that I would like the school board to table 8.4, the vote on the budget this evening, and table that until the November meeting or later for further study. And the budget seems to have some areas that need to be addressed. Let me just list a few due to time. We are hiring 83 classroom assistants. Why are we doing this instead of hiring qualified teachers? The other thing is that I understand that our taxes go up every year by assessed evaluation. In fact, I just got a statement from the tax assessor. Mine's going up $27,000. I have appealed, so we'll see what happens there. But the money keeps coming in at a greater amount every year because building new houses, businesses move in. I sell my house, somebody else buys it. The taxes go they get a different rate that is higher than I pay now. So, being said that the budget is proposed now, we get 2 security officers, 2 resource officers, plus 1 resource officer that is in on a grant. That's 5, I think, the way I've seen this. Taxpayers are saying on the internet and other places, people I've talked to, this should be enough to suffice with the 5 or the 8 that we have now. Should be plenty for this school system. My third point is, right off the bat, is I don't see in the bond fund any of the bond for the police and ambulance station. I don't remember what you called it, the new fires, where you're gonna put the ambulances in the police station. The only place I seen this was in the referendum budget, which was a $482,000 capital thing. Now, if that's what you're planning on doing, is paying for that out of that bond fund there, that money and paying for that, I think that should not have been done. That should have been put into regular budget. All right, one more quick thing. On the referendum, we're going to hire 56 classroom assistants. I do not feel that these classroom assistants are mental health professionals. We need mental health professionals in our school. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Poor. Now on our agenda, we move to consent items, and I will defer to Dr. Arkanoff.
Thank you. No, is there? No, there's only one.
There's only one.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Toomey. This evening, I'm recommending to the board to approve the consent agenda, amending the consent agenda by removing the personnel report. To an action item, sorry. So just need a motion.
Okay,
just a
do I have a motion?
Dr. Arkanoff, I move that we approve the consent agenda as amended.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed likewise? Motion carried.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and do the personnel.
Okay.
Okay, Mrs. Toomey, I'll go ahead and do the first action item as a personnel report today. I'd like to recommend that the board approve the personnel report with the amendment in the personnel report to remove the recommendation for the tech theater club position. Make sure I say that right.
All right. Are we ready for a motion?
Madam President, I move that we approve the personnel report as amended for Dr. Arkanoff's suggestion.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Now we're on 8.1.
Okay. Okay, Dr.
Thank you, Mrs. Toomey. This evening, I'm recommending that the board approve donations for middle schools central, and I'll provide you with some additional information. One of Center Grove Middle School's parents has made 2 donations to the school. One donation is in the amount of $2,500, which will be used for teacher appreciation and incentives for the staff. The other donation in the amount of $2,500 will be placed into Middle School Central's ECA band account. And I'm recommending that the board accept and approve those donations to Middle School Central in the amount of $5,000.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Arkanoff. Any questions? Okay. Do I hear a motion to accept?
I just had one question. I'm assuming by
Yes.
the way this is written, the parent wants to remain anonymous? And that's fine. I would just like to thank them anonymously, whoever it is.
Okay. Did you have a question, Mr. Alexander?
No, I just,
Okay. All right.
please thank them.
I don't think we know who that is. do we?
And that's fine.
It's all good.
I will entertain a motion to accept those donations.
I move that we accept the donations to Middle School Central as spelled out in the letter that's in our board packet.
Thank you. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed likewise. Motion carried.
Thank
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, anonymous person.
Yes. Next item on the action item list is approval of the school calendars. Dr. Arkanoff?
Thank you, Mrs. Toomey. This evening, I'm recommending that the board approve school calendars for 5 years, and Mr. Taylor will provide you with some additional information.
Thank you, Dr. Arkanoff. At the September 26th meeting, I provided you with a report on the 5-year calendar plan for the school. Following that presentation, upon the board's request, we solicited feedback from staff and parents about the proposed calendars. The results from the survey are included with the agenda this evening, and Ms. Parker will scroll through them as I speak. As you'll see, the responses were very favorable to the proposed calendars that we presented. There was one main area of difference between a 1 or 2 week fall break and the corresponding 1 week at Thanksgiving break. However, after reviewing the responses, we felt like staying with our original criteria of trying to equal out the breaks, not have shortened weeks, and to match the Central 9 calendar to the best of our ability, that a 1 week fall break and a full week at Thanksgiving is the best way to meet that original criteria. So the calendars presented are the same as they were last month. They include a 1 week fall break, a 1-week Thanksgiving, 2 weeks during the winter time, and 2 weeks in the spring. I believe that's it. So I'll turn it back over to you, Bob.
You have heard that plan. Do I hear a motion?
I think there were a couple questions.
All right.
Thank you.
We'll take those questions right now.
And I know originally this was discussed at the last meeting, a survey went out, which is great, and I'm glad that we had so many respondents and so much feedback. But I still kind of warn planning too far into the future. And to the extent that we vote on this and approve this tonight, I want to warn anybody that's maybe listening that state can change law. Circumstances can happen. So my only hesitation in putting out a 5-year plan is something can happen in between now and then, we have to amend it. So, I'll defer to the majority, but at the same time, I'm wondering if we shouldn't be approving a 1 or 2 year plan and make the other 3 or 4 years just,
Possibilities.
yeah, contingent plans. This is what we're thinking about, but then we still bring it up for vote every year. So that's my only question, and I'll defer to the majority. I'm really hesitant to be able to set in stone what our calendar is going to look like 5 years from now.
Thank you. Other comments?
I just agree with Mr. Daniels. It's hard to think 5 years out that that's going to stick. It just really is, especially with what the state can do to us, plus what we do to ourselves sometimes. So somewhere in here, I would like something that would state we can get back into this at any given time. That this is not set in stone, in other words.
I think we'd be happy to add that language to the last 2 years. Is that what I'm hearing?
I would feel comfortable with the
I do
last
want to
3
point
years.
out, on
Last
on
3.
each calendar, we did state, waiver days are really the thing that's up in the air at the state level. We did put in red that it could change the start and end date of the year. We feel like the breaks will probably remain consistent over this time period. But the start and end could be something that the state legislates us to do something different.
I guess I would feel very comfortable voting on a 2 year calendar.
2 year, yeah.
And then a provisional for the other 3, to be raised each year to kind of, because I understand people want to plan. I want to plan too. Now that I have one in college and one in high school, it's a little different. They're not all on the same calendar. So, to the extent that that helps people, that's great. I just would hate to have somebody plan way down the road and then have us change it because something happens out of our control.
Yeah,
Would-
just so
would
the
we be
knowledge is
com-
out there that it can change.
I was going to ask would you be comfortable with language on the calendars that stated that these calendars are subject to change? Would that be?
As long as it's in it.
Yeah, I mean, the
As
board
long as
has
it's not
changed, yeah.
minuscule print at the bottom, that it's
Yeah.
not gonna get read.
Sure.
It's gotta be somewhere that's noticeable.
Yeah.
And I'm with Mr. Daniels. I can be comfortable with 2, but 3 and 4 and 5, it's just too much up in the air. I appreciate the work.
Absolutely.
It had to go into 5 years of calendar.
Okay,
I think we have another comment.
yes, Mr. Alexander?
So I absolutely applaud all the effort that goes into the calendar. I know this has been something in my tenure on the board has always been it's probably my 3rd favorite thing that we talk about every couple of years. The only feedback I got from some community members, and it's in the 2024 calendar where we weren't able to quite figure out how to get out before Memorial Day. If there's any way to figure that out for consistency's sake for a lot of parents, because the proposals approve a 5-year calendar at the moment. 4 out of 5 are out before Memorial Day. I think some of the parents were concerned they're not gonna remember, oh yeah, the kids are always out before Memorial Day, and all of a sudden that 1 year they aren't. I know the challenge there, it has to do with how holidays fall and some of the other pieces, but, don't know if and it's 2024, so we got we got a couple of years if we gotta go back and change it or have a look at it, and kind of back to Mr. Daniels' point.
I think we definitely could look at that. We couldn't start earlier without being in July.
Right,
That's one
which
of our hindrances, but
I applaud
Yeah,
that.
that needs to
I
stay.
think that's, our goal has always been start after August 1st, out by June 1st, and whenever possible, out before Memorial Day. And I get there may be some years that's not possible, but if there's any way to get get all 5 years a little more consistent, I think that would be a huge win.
We could take, if the whole board is comfortable with a motion that would approve a 2-year calendar with 3 years tentative. Would that be acceptable to the board? If someone would make that motion, then we could do that. And then what we would do is bring back every year another
next year.
The next
The
year.
next year.
And I think each year too, we could bring back the next year and then the tentative
Yes,
4-year down the road.
yeah, that at least will cut the work down a lot.
Right.
So it would be a rolling situation.
Yeah, but you would approve it every year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you roll in another year though.
So, correct.
So, we will entertain a motion to talk about what you want to do with this 5-year plan.
I move that we approve the 2 years presented on the 5-year plan, and the other 3 are provisional, subject to change and come up each year for reapproval. But I'm comfortable with moving to approve the 2 years, and then the last 3 years would be provisional.
Okay, thank you. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Further discussion? Say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed likewise?
Thank you. Good work on that. I know that's a bear.
Okay. The next item on the action list is approval of benefits and compensation.
All right. Thank you, Mrs. Toomey. This evening, I'm recommending that the board approve the revised statement of benefits and compensation, and Mr. Taylor will provide you with some additional information.
Thank you. Mrs. Parker has put the summary of changes up on the screen for us. It'll walk you through that. Most of these changes correspond with our teachers' collective bargaining agreement that we approved earlier this month. And so in level A and in level B and in level C, we've added a salary increase of 4.5% to match. Some of the other changes we made is we updated the health insurance premium amounts. Again, that was something that we settled during the bargaining process. And that would apply to level A, B, and C employees as well. In the level B category, we're adding 2 new positions. The Assistant Director of Operations, this is an internal position. One other one will be eliminated as the person's promoted into this position. And then also to approve the position of Director of Social, Emotional, and Wellness, and Behavioral Wellness. This is a position that we would fill, and it's posted and out there, and it's something we'd like to fill as part of the work we've been doing throughout the corporation. Finally, there's one area that was a correction in the technology certification, just to match language that's been in the support staff handbook for a couple of years. The last 2 boxes on this screen are something I want to spend a little bit more time on. Ms. Pitts has been working real hard to evaluate the compensation model that we have for our bus drivers, our trainers, our substitutes, and our bus monitors. This does not include changes to the office staff. This is simply something that we want to target so that we can attract and keep and retain the best bus drivers possible for our students. And so we're adding a step process similar to other level C employees, where bus drivers will be compensated at higher amounts based off their experience and longevity as a bus driver. It also increases some of the positions that support our bus drivers, like a bus monitor, and the temporary folks who are hired in as they get trained will actually receive a little higher level compensation to try to get more people in the pipeline to be better bus drivers for us for longer periods of time. This is great work she's been doing with Dr. Long. We both entertain any questions you may have on it. And then we made a couple other changes in the level D that are outlined there, again, in line with some new positions we needed to create. With that, I'll present this.
Comments, questions?
I don't have anything.
It's my understanding that they've found a way within their budget to pay for most of the increases in the bus driver compensation. Is that correct?
Yes, I think Mrs. Pitts has looked at it, and by not buying one additional new bus, it would save us about $100,000 in in our budget, and I think the total cost of her proposal was around $115,000. So it comes really very close to paying for itself. And one of the things that Mr. Taylor didn't talk about is it increased the pay for field trips. That's becoming a bigger and bigger challenge. People have to drive later at night and then turn around and get up in the morning. And one of the things that Ms. Pitts did a phenomenal job of is looking at all of our competition around. You know, you've seen in the paper where Carmel's resorted to hiring teachers to drive school buses. And, you know, we think we offer a really competitive wage now if the board approves this. And I think it will go a long way in attracting people and keeping people here for a long time.
And I know every year, the public may not know this, but I know every year we have discussions, are we gonna have enough bus drivers?
Right.
We have a lot of great bus drivers, we don't wanna lose them. So I think if we can find a way to pay them more and pay them for their service, yet still find a way to make it close to budget neutral, I applaud the creativity in trying to fix a problem out there.
I'll pass that on.
Yes, please do. Yep. I appreciate Dr. Long sharing that. Also, all of these other raises were included in the budget that Dr. Gabriel presented and that you'll be approving hopefully later tonight.
Okay, other comments? All right, I will entertain a motion.
Madam President, I move that we approve the statement of benefits and compensation as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Alexander. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Russell. Any other discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Those opposed likewise? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next item that we need to address this evening is approving the 2020 budget. Dr. Arkanoff?
Thank you, Mrs. Toomey. This evening, I'm recommending that the board approve the 2020 budget for all funds this evening, as presented by Dr. Gabriel in previous board meeting. And Dr. Gabriel will provide you with some just additional information to refresh your memory.
This evening, we're asking the board to approve the budget. This was presented in more detail at the last board meeting. Since that time, there have been no suggestions for any changes or any comments about the budget. I'd like to clear up a few things that Mr. Poor said that are quick, easy things to clear up. Number one, the Department of Local Government Finance, the DLGF, requires that our budget be adopted prior to November 1st. So any school district in our situation with a referendum in the fall has to do this in a way that seems backwards. We must approve the budget prior to November 1st. We cannot, they would not allow us to approve a budget after the election day. They'll have the budget under consideration for 2 or 3 months. They have over 2,000 budgets to approve across the state for all governmental units. Sometime in late December, we'll have our official a budget provided to us by the DLGF, and if the referendum does not pass, all references to that will simply be removed from our official budget. So that's that situation. The other thing, to just clear something up, and Mr. Poor, I just went out to the website to look at it, and you said we had 83 aides in this budget, and the actual number is 8.3, and if you look at the website, it's really hard to see that decimal point. We probably should have used a different font, but that's about 1 aide per building that we've added in this budget, only 8.3. So a couple of things that can be cleared up there very quickly. But no other changes or suggestions, so we would ask the board to approve all the budgets this evening along with the included resolutions.
Thank you, Dr. Gabriel. Any further comments from board members? Do I hear a motion for approval?
Madam President, I move that we approve the 2020 budget as stated in resolutions.
Thank you, Mr. Russell. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Daniels?
I'm sorry, is that motion good?
Yeah.
It is? Okay. All right.
Yeah.
We don't have to do the 3 bullet points.
I'll just reread.
Just reread the motion, please.
Yeah.
I move that we approve the 2020 budgets for all funds as presented, along with the following resolutions. Resolution to adopt the Capital Projects Fund Plan, resolution to adopt the bus replacement plan, and resolution for appropriations and tax rate.
Okay, thank you very much. We have a motion, and do we have a second? Mr. Daniels? All right. Any further discussion? All those in favor then of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed likewise? Motion carried. Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is other business. And I'm going to ask of each of you if you have any other business to bring forward to the board. Mr. Alexander, do you have any other?
Nothing to report tonight, Mr. Jimmy.
Okay. Mr. Russell?
Just quickly, the alumni had a successful homecoming. Really kudos to John Zwitt and his staff for always putting on homecoming. There's a lot that goes on there, and timing has to be correct, and it always goes smoothly. Tonight is the big purse bingo put on by the Center Grove Education Foundation. I have seen some pictures. It looks very successful. I did not attend the state board this time because it was in Gary. I wasn't driving up there.
Okay.
Don't blame you.
Thank you. Mr. Daniels?
Nothing tonight.
Okay. Mr. Hubbard?
No, ma'am.
All right, thank you very much.
Just a couple of announcements, that's it.
I do have a couple of announcements. A superintendent's coffee chat will be held on October the 30th at Jack's Donuts, and that will be held from 8 to 9:30 in the morning.
Yes, my favorite place to have it.
The second announcement I have is on our next regular board meeting will be November 21st here in this room, beginning, of course, at 7 p.m. Any other announcements?
We have to sign stuff.
All right. Do I hear a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Alexander. Second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Hubbard. All those in favor of adjourning, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried. Okay. Thank you.